Well, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Don't mind me. I was just herding cats, and I wish that was a joke. I actually wasn't. Oh, dear God, they do not play fair. Why do they have to be so cute and abuse that right up until they decide to take advantage of it with their claws? Yeah, more importantly, we're going to be looking at the next episode, or the next part of episode 31, The Dreamer Awakens from a Star Wars... I can't speak today. Star Wars for Warhammer 40K by a fan with too much time. I've also been told that if you go into his Patreon, he does things. Also, he has a Patreon, so if you enjoy this, go do that. More importantly, I want to jump into this because I'm actually under a time limit today, as in, I don't want to piss off my wife because we have to go to my mother-in-law's after this, and I would rather not fuck that up, is what I would say, but... yeah, I'm aware. So we're going to jump right in, see where this goes, and hopefully not be too late. So we're going to start right up. More importantly, maybe an idea. Also, you can see in the background, I got a green screen. I need to adjust that, build it, fix it up, make it work, figure out what the fuck I'm doing. This will be fun. Fun, like every other time I've tried to fix something. I am not technically minded. I'm sure nothing will break, and the next time you come in, there'll just be a bunch of broken glass behind me. Again. Yeah. Also, just a random aside, when I mention it, it's specifically the Knights Library. This is the Fan With Too Much Time's Patreon page. There's 112 people here. Let's get that a little higher. Now, where were we? I'm already wearing the headphones. That's what I was forgetting. I was already wearing the headphones. I thought something was different. And it's like, oh yeah, I don't usually do the intros with headphones on. This is the difference. Okay. And a fan said, proven by the first images of our own Christian God back when he was L. Petting and wrestling with lions for fun, because all cat fern shaped, so saith the Lord. Cat fern? I feel I'm missing something. Ah, yes, herding cats. Apparently, other people know my pain. And I mean that in the metaphorical, but also somewhat literal sense. I'm not sure if I'm bleeding or not. We'll find out.
Even as Imperial warpcraft began to reach out, striding over the placid Sea of Souls as they honed in on those Confederate worlds which were most responsible for the production and control of the droid armies. Mechas 3, Utapau, Metalorn, Balmora, Gentis, Hypori, and many others soon played
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised he didn't drop down the planet Anakin got drastic weight reduction surgery on. Because, one, I completely forgot the name of the planet, and two, that would be kind of funny as just a little shout out.
To small Imperial battle fleets. Fleets which lacked the numbers to perform the devastating orbital bombardments that had brought Raxus Secundus to its end. But the Imperials would encounter only paltry, ill-informed resistance. The defense fleets of the assailed planets unprepared for the sudden rush of aggression the Imperials would show them.
Because they're doing... Yeah, I think I recognize this, and it's kind of what Grievous already did, so it's not really a huge surprise to see it at this point. The people who actually run the Separatists are pulling back to build an army that actually matters to fight, as opposed to the people who think they ran the Separatists, who are all dead. Yeah. Mustafar,
and
that's the
even
one.
Less prepared for the devastating weapons the battle groups would deploy to bring ruination to their world.
But ultimately, they're doing damage to nothing that...
Davin Thune had taken his time with the brutalization of the capital of the Confederacy.
If it actually mattered,
when it came to these
constituent
worlds, he allowed no such dalliances.
Oh?
Ordering his divided fleet to drive in through enemy resistance, drop their payloads of world-ending armaments, and then
they're doing
to depart
Exterminatus?
For the rendezvous location. The light...
I guess their focus is less on melee combat, which is what I assumed initially, and more on just Crusade-level Exterminatus, because this is a lot of death right away. Or is it because they're getting rid of safeties they usually have because this is not their normal galaxy? Huh. And because there's a lot less hub worlds in Star Wars than I think about. Partially just because when you think of how big the galaxy actually is, the sheer scope of it becomes overwhelming, and to the point where nothing a single fleet could do would ever be enough to matter. But that's in real terms of size, and technically, the Star Wars galaxy is bigger than the Milky Way. when you actually get into the numbers, it's kind of absurd.
Lightning strike fashion of these bombings
Like 10, 20, a
yielded
million dead
immense
worlds.
results.
There's like a billion others.
On
100,000?
most
I'm not
worlds,
actually sure.
at least. But a few, by one method or another, fended off these wounded wielders of woe. And one world
Wow.
off these wounded wielders of woe.
I'm actually impressed that Fan can do that without getting tongue-tied. I don't care how many takes it took him. I can't do that. Wounded wielders of woo. Fuck. That I can't. That is a tongue twister, and he put it in there basically to show off his voice acting chops at that point. I'm not even sure if it was intentional or not, or just because he liked alliteration, but it does function that way. I'm actually impressed. I mean, if only he would talk about how she sold she sells at the seashore. As you can see, I don't do tongue twisters.
And one world in particular did far more.
Oh?
The Confederacy burned
What
that
planet is
day,
actually standing up? It's probably the one Grievous was
but
on.
from its ashes would rise a new
What are they fighting,
monster.
these ships? It's probably a
Though
Xenos
the
faction 40K.
Crimson Razors knew it not. They had awakened a sleeping giant.
Literally a sleeping
One
giant,
of
too.
cold blood.
It's not even a
and
joke in this case.
pitiless steel. One
Actually, normally I'm like, haha, they described him identically. But this is one of those me issues as a writing major thing I'm going to go off on. When you have a description of something that is sounding like a metaphor for how to describe something, or a simile for something very similar to it, which is what a simile is. But it's identical thing. It's like the snake was long and snake-like. Technically, yes, that is accurate, but also it's so on the nose. But then you have Grievous that we're talking about, and he is a giant who is sleeping, and you describe him as a sleeping giant. It's like, I mean, yes, that is accurate, but it's so on the nose. I would actually prefer if you just did another joke, maybe bring in a title drop of the Dreamer who was awakening, because it's close enough without being a direct description of him being masqueraded as a simile or a metaphor. It just, there needs to be a little more separation. That's a personal thing. I know some people are completely okay with that. And because we haven't had him directly in the story since a good bit ago, it kind of works, but this is a me thing. I just think that's one of those issues I have with writing when it gets a little too direct. Unless it's being done for humor, but this didn't feel like humorous time. Also, people are saying it's rip and tear time. Ooh, and Real McCoy said, if there isn't a single, the negotiator reference in there, then this failed Grievous. To be fair, I think that version of Grievous already died, so we might have missed that one.
which was all too accustomed to fighting hopeless wars against invaders of greater size, strength, and technology. It would come to be known as the Bane of Razors.
What?
But this monster would, in truth, be the bane of far more, both for this galaxy and the next.
What? The next. Did they find fucking Abeloth? Because they said singular monster, so all the other threats I could think of are either groups who would do it. Maybe he's talking about a group as a singular entity as opposed to an individual singular entity itself. But if they woke up Abeloth, I mean, that's basically the 40K equivalent in the Star Wars side of either a greater demon or a greater chaos god themselves. Maybe demigod? Yeah, probably closer to what Vashtor is rather than Nurgle. Shelob? General Grievous? Wait, double names. Shelob?
Dooku's
Shalal.
signal to Hypori was sent only minutes after he had confirmed General Grievous's death.
Oh.
The
that was
message
fast.
carried aloft on hyperspace communication terminals and arriving well before the incoming Imperial fleet.
Ooh.
The signal reactivated medical droids and awoke a facility which had lain dormant for nearly the entirety of the Clone Wars. Within, the living corpse of Quayman Jai Shalal lay.
Shalal, that's how you say it.
Dreaming in half-sleep, bathed in Bacta and preserving fluids. Little more than a half-face, a brain, and a floating sack full of organs. But that did not last.
Also, Josh said, oh no, that's just Grievous. Oh wait, so Grievous is the one who's being called the Bane of multiple galaxies? Damn, how much is Fan playing this guy up? I don't know, and I kind of want to find out. Also, just going to adjust this right here. Ah, there we go. YouTube adjusted how things are, so I can't actually see shit anymore. There we go.
An electrical current was forced through the fluid, jolting the organic remnants within, drawing out
Does he become aware of
silent
being just a
screams
torso?
from the dreamer.
Ew.
He woke all at once, his every dream, every sleeping thought coming alive, and immediately clutched within the grip of his will. He would never release a single dream again, even as he was tested with a second unnecessary volt of wakening charge.
Because they're being dicks, because
Now
of course the
alive
Sith
once
are.
more, the tank drained.
I swear, they're just kids and kickers.
The
That's
metal
all they are.
pedestal which made up his neck and torso being brought out into the air. He coughed and wheezed, mechanical and organic lungs working more sluggishly
Oh,
than
he has
the
an
rest of
organic
his
lung
body.
still?
But the
Oh.
automated process gave him no mercy, no time to acclimate. That was fine, for he desired none. No mercy, not from those who had taken him, who had betrayed him. For he had dreamed the only dream he had ever sought. For nearly 4 years, he had seen her face.
Oh, so when they say the dreamer awakens, they don't just mean that he woke up, but that he woke up from some of the conditioning and knows that they were fucking with him. Oh.
Smelled her hair, felt
Her
their
who?
thumbs interlace, both
A
in
wife?
the fear before
lover?
combat
Or someone
and
else?
in the exaltation that came after.
Also, just a random thing. I just noticed the pattern behind it is actually distortion of the background lines showing the fluid ripples. Really good on Fan for doing that one. Not Fan, sorry. I saw Fan down there. Fellow Fan. Kubik. Yeah, he did a really good job showing that there's a liquid substance in there rather than just a coloration gradient.
They had taken her, taken his memory of her from him. Never again. While the dreamt one could not ascend to the gods that awaited her, she lingered where she had been born.
What?
In his dreams. Dreams of war, dreams of love, and dreams of betrayal.
Those ones aren't
Be it
dreams.
by the will of the Force, or by the
What?
spirit of his loss, or even by the regenerative properties of Kalish minds and the influence of the Bacta he had been submerged within.
Two questions. One, does Bacta have dreaming properties? I mean, I always just know it as that miracle substance that fixes everything, because if you got enough of it, you're more or less fine. Except for when you're not, you need cybernetic replacements because story plot lines. But also, when he says the will of the Force, we've already seen multiple characters who seem to be favored by the Force. Is Grievous one of them? Probably plot point.
The general remembered it all. Remembered why he grieved, and by
Why
that,
he's calling himself
what
Grievous.
he was. And he
Angry?
was no errand boy, no slave, no droid.
Well, I mean,
In spite
technically you
of
were their
this
slave.
knowledge, his body was assembled
Time
around
to fix
him
that.
like one. Internals swiftly placed inside his dismantled torso, armor sliding over his organ sac. Mechanical servos and actuators being plugged into his neck and chest, allowing the general to shudder as his limbs were reattached. Sparks of tingling pain shooting up through him as artificial nerves were connected to old, unused ports. The ruthless reconstruction took just over 10 minutes to complete.
Ugh.
Grievous held parallel on a table-like mechanical rack, his arms and legs bound to either side of him in order to restrain his twitches and spasms as he rapidly adjusted. Reptilian eyes squinted into the medical lights which faced down on him, the only lights in that dark, cursed room. The final piece of his ensemble appeared, hovering
What's the
over
final
his
piece?
face.
The mask?
It was his mask, the bone-white vestment descending like a perverse death shroud.
I kind of like that fans specifically described it that way because it very much fits in context with 40K, because that is actively something some people do. The death masks are a very much canonical thing to that. And while it's sort of like that in Star Wars, it can or can't be looked that way. Whereas 40K, where it is explicitly a thing. So I kind of like that in a mix of those two together, this is the way he's describing it, because it does feel like this is a corpse who's basically brought back. I mean, essentially, he is in a much more slimmed down dreadnought as far as 40K would understand it. If anything, they'd be like, I'm sorry, I can get a dreadnought version and it looks that fast? Sign me up! Hell, if anything, he might be like their ideal. If they were in peaceful terms, they might even want to buy it.
But the
They ain't, though.
rise of General Grievous. It squealed and sealed to what was left of his face before the table tilted forward within the room. Count Dooku was already waiting for him,
Damn, he
though
got there fast.
not in person. The Sith Lord appeared before his general under the sky-colored veneer of a hologram, standing and looking imperious
hologram.
as ever.
Out
If
of line's reach,
somewhat
or
older
arm's
and
reach.
more maligned. General Grievous, can you hear me? He asked.
Is he going to play along
There
or
was a
immediately give up the
pause
ghost?
then, as the slitted pupils of the nearly droid general eyed the leader of the Confederacy.
I can, Count Dooku.
Oh. Okay, we're at 1. I want to just hear something quickly by comparison. That's old Grievous's voice.
Leader of the Confederacy.
I can, Count Dooku.
And then we have...
A reaction born of loyalty, compassion. He was briefed on the use of even the most pixel or project.
Okay, I can't seem to find it, but it does sound different than his previous voice work. Where was I? 110?
Of the nearly droid general.
Count Dooku.
Ah. It does seem like his voice is much more calm this time around. I would love to get a comparison to like what one sounds like versus the others, because it's so... It shows the change. Even if Van never described the characters and how these are... One is the puffed up joke that is the over-the-top malevolent one who could be easily disposed of when they need it, versus the initial version we saw of Grievous before he was toned down. And not just by Disney. Clone Wars did it too. So this entire thing is like that reaction of, okay, here is the much more calm, collected, murderous Grievous versus the oh yes, I am evil dying. And everyone in the chat is talking about how there's massive Vader vibes. Yeah, oh, definitely. And that's very much intentional, because they probably reversed Vader to make Grievous as the entire idea of a cyborg monstrosity leading everyone.
He said at length, "Good. It is good to see that you have recovered."
Hobbit, the voice has
Said
Vader
the
vibes.
Count.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Grievous said nothing.
He just said my master.
We have, unfortunately, little enough time to catch you up. After the successful Battle of Hypori, you suffered unforeseen complications during your resting cycle. We were forced
What was that in the background?
unforeseen complications during your resting cycle. We were
Oh, it's probably part of the music fans playing in the background that just had spoken lines. That's what that is. Also, unforeseen complications. You had a sudden case of being too competent for our liking.
forced to intervene to save your life. But the procedure to do so has taken a very long time to complete. Dooku lied.
How
And Grievous
long?
is aware.
Asked the general.
Long enough.
3 years by the galactic date.
I thought it was 4.
There is much work to be done. A new enemy has come among us, and already they have laid waste to Raxus Secundus. And I have reason to believe that they are en route to our factory worlds, including Hypori, even as we speak.
They're having a fight on Hypori
They
again.
will arrive in a matter of days, if current estimates are accurate.
Are they?
Said the
Because I know
Sith
they move
Lord.
fast, but...
I have forwarded to you all the data we have on them, including Republic data that we have obtained from our secret contacts within the Senate.
Technically, he told the complete truth about that. They have a secret contact in the Senate who gives them information. Specifically, the guy in charge of it. That is technically a complete and utter truth.
He continued before suddenly being cut off.
Ronderu Lij Kumar.
What?
Said Grievous.
Does that mean something specific?
Count Dooku attempted not to reveal anything when the name was spoken, but the narrowing of his eyes was not missed by the Kalish warlord. Who is that? Asked the Count. The answer came
Why does he look like that?
slowly, as Grievous looked first to his right and then to his left, eyeing the restraints which held him. Enough to stop his spasms, but not enough to stop him.
She
Oh?
was the only thing that mattered.
The general growled,
That was his
yanking
wife.
free his right arm, breaking the shackle which held it, and then doing the same with his left.
Dude.
General,
look like a
you are
gorilla in
delusional
how he's
after your
sitting.
long dormancy. I assure you, there is no such person,
Not anymore.
said the Count of Sereno.
Do not.
The general spat, ripping free his legs from the table.
Speak of her.
Dooku scowled, stepping forward.
Dooku then fucked up.
Tread carefully
I thought he was
now,
only a hologram,
General.
though. Why would he step
Do not
forward?
break with me over a fantasy.
I just realized I almost wish this was in Dooku's perspective. We get so much more information from Grievous right now, seeing his internal mind of going, I'm about to fuck all y'all up. And Dooku going like, yes, you're just the tool we're using. Oh, that's what happened. He got used to the ineffectual Grievous who just went along with their bullshit because he's utterly incompetent by comparison, which is why they wanted that version, because this version is supposed to be the super competent, dangerous one. But because he's used to one, he's looking at the same face and not making the same connection. He's not treating this Grievous yet like he's a competent actual threat, which he knew initially. But after multiple years, he's made the assumption it's still Grievous. But the thing is, no, it's not. This is someone you should be a lot more scared about. Also, Lord Admiral Salt, thank you for the donation. Also, George Lucas stated that Grievous' backstory and attitude was changed because he was too similar to his vision for Darth Vader. Yeah, I get that. But at the same time, I always thought that was part of the reason Grievous worked, because he was that reflection of Vader early on. There was just that dramatic irony of, see, here is exactly what Anakin is going to become and suffer. And he's getting that as opposed to him as a kid, with him as an adult right on screen without actually doing time travel shenanigans. I always personally liked that for the exact reason George Lucas would change it. And admittedly, I could see him changing it for that reason. It's one of those, it can go both ways depending on how they play it off. I still kind of wish they did both, like Fan is doing. Because if you have two characters that have the same exact story, if you don't treat that very carefully, it gets really awkward because it becomes obvious to the fans that you're creating very limited amount of characters and just putting new paint skins on them. Doing it once as a direct nod to irony about what will happen to the person fighting against the monster that you're going to become, that's interesting. But that's a lot easier to do over a movie where you don't have to spend multiple seasons on them. And changing him might have been a better idea if that's specifically the purpose, to make sure that they don't sound too similar. But I personally like the irony of them being similar. Kind of wish George hadn't changed that. That's just me, though.
This Ronderu Lij Kumar is nothing more than a dream. and
Now.
we have enough to deal with within
Yeah, I
reality.
mean, considering the warp is the realm of
Grievous
dreams.
glared
She might
with
actually be there.
savage hate at the blue wraith, stalking forward and resting one of his multi-pronged feet onto the walking hollow emitter that the Count was using.
He's on the emitter?
Drawing lines of
Also, I realized when I thought he was hunched over, I thought these were the feet for a second. I didn't realize these had continuing legs down here. That would do it.
clarity through the image of the Sith, like
Dude.
claw marks across a painting.
I agree.
Said he, before stomping down and crushing the device. General Dooku began, but then he was gone, and Grievous was alone.
Dooku
For a
realized he
time,
might have fucked up.
He did nothing, standing amidst the medical droids and dust of the abandoned facility he had been housed within.
Can he get
He was
biological
utterly
replacements?
still, the result of his droid body, which failed to breathe in and out as heavily as he felt he should. His systems self-regulating every second. And yet, his rage did not abate. Not until he
Dude.
released a mechanical howl of abject, fearsome hate. And he did not stop there. The general tore half the room to pieces.
Going full Kylo Ren on this.
Ripping the mechanical
but not a
rack
joke.
he had been held within off of the floor and throwing it. Smashing medical droids against the walls with it. He destroyed his Bacta tank, crushed the control console attached to it, and tore the heads and limbs off of the flailing, panicking droids which were present. Each
dude.
attempting to flee the space, and none making it to the door.
Yeah,
At last, he calmed
good choice there for the mask he's wearing versus the mask reflected.
and stilled after he finally dismembered the last of them and tossed its sparking torso into the overhead lamp, shattering it and leaving him in dark.
Damn, Grievous.
He took just a few moments after this to acclimate.
That's
and
a
to
word.
Think. He
Got most of his
straightened
work
and
out
looked
of him.
around the sparking, smoking ruin which lay about him, locating the half of the room he had constrained himself from destroying. Grievous stalked over towards the computer panel behind the now scrapped emitter and pressed one of his thumbs against it.
Oh?
Facility online.
Oh, we didn't break
awaiting
everything.
Directives. Said the voice of a tactical droid.
Disconnect all off-world communications systems.
Oh.
Sever them all. Deploy buzz droids to all the hardline communications centers and have them disabled immediately.
Okay.
Said the warlord. As you order, General. Said the voice.
What are our resource stores at currently?
Do they have any?
He asked. Resource stores are at full capacity.
Oh, they
Droid
left him
garrison
everything.
Is at 4/10 capacity.
Eh.
Shall I begin production of additional units?
Oh, he has resources for unit. Oh. So they gave General Grievous, with a grudge, who's not bullshitted in the head anymore, a full payload of resources and a facility that can be stocked up to full, or put on, oh, fuck this, I'm going to burn everyone to the ground levels of production. Also known as why droid armies are scary if done right, as opposed to Star Wars where they're intentionally not done wrong because they could be a problem. Oh god, he's basically going to Zerg rush, isn't he? Yeah, and that works.
Asked the facility intelligence.
I don't even play StarCraft. I know that
Yes.
strategy.
Divert all B1 resources to other droid models.
Oh.
We are no longer able to sustain their use. Prioritize
B1s?
the
Oh, the
construction
generic.
of B2s and any other experimental
Is that
variants
super
that
battle?
we are able to assemble.
So it's not even going to be a
Prepare the
joke army
maintenance
either.
and astromechanical droids to repurpose the B1 production facilities.
Oh. And he's getting the mechs to make
warlord
more mechs.
continued. As you order, General. The communication towers are about to be permanently disabled.
And if there's no
Do you
communication.
wish to transmit any last messages?
And wait, people are saying he's on Hypori right now, which was the main factory altogether. Oh, so he's not just at a specific off-world site. He's at the main factory. I thought it was just bad because they unleashed Grievous. They unleashed Grievous and then lost the main production hub. I guess the only question now is, can he build starships based on the resources he has? Because if he can, oh yeah, everyone else is fucked.
The facility asked. Grievous paused then, looking at the mechanical thumb he had pressed against the console, hating it, hating everything about this place, and the way he had been remade. So much had gone wrong. It was time he began to set it right.
Would he start integrating biological sections to get over that?
Send a text transmission to the Kali system.
That'd be interesting.
In wild
Probably not.
Space.
What?
Broadcast it in the native language.
Wild space?
He said,
Probably his home.
Roger, what shall the message be? The droid mind asked.
Tell them, the dreamer has awakened.
Oh god, I got shivers. I'm not even joking. Can you guys see this? I like legitimately have like goosebumps on my arm. I can't even tell if it's visible or not, but oh my god, that is... Okay. I'm suddenly giving Fan a lot more credit for not doing the title drop earlier when you just described Grievous's condition with an actual description of his condition in place of a metaphor. Because this was a much better usage of a title drop. Because it's not just a title drop, it's also a message and a reflection of who he is and what's happening in the episode. And information for people who understand
Captain Vordran stood on the bridge of the Red Harbinger, one of the 10 strike cruisers of the Crimson Razor's assault fleet. Below
Only
deck
10?
and on other ships, prepared and waiting for him to give the word in the event that they should be needed, were 3 squads of his battle brothers. But he knew they would likely not be needed for anything at all, for this mission would be over quickly once it began.
Oh yeah, these are definitely the guys dying to Grievous. Like that right there, that entire one. This will be over before it began. That is so much of a, I can take her. Nah, I'd win. This is going to be easy. Only 5 more days till retirement. It is that level of confidence that you know someone's going to die and probably screaming. Oh yeah.
He had been traveling for over a week. His strike cruiser and its accompanying escorts having braved the naked warp to arrive.
It's not really braving in the Star Wars side.
According to the still living navigators of the naval elements which accompanied them, they were only minutes from their destination at last. We are clear on the plan. Vordran asked the captain of the Red Harbinger, a mundane woman with slight augmentations who went by the name of Persava Lyons. She said,
Fan? Was that a Fallout reference? It's not the same as Sarah Lyons, but Persava is close enough phonetically that I could see it. I mean, it couldn't be any worse than when I actually had Fallout, which is canonically, she died. And went missing. And died. Yeah.
Sat at her command throne, nodding as she eyed the hololithic displays which hovered over the front of her throne. We are ready, my lord, she said, standing up and waving her hands, signaling the display to shrink down and be presented before them at waist level. We will enter the system at the Lagrange point nearest to the planet, as dictated by the intelligence we managed to rip from the boarded enemy vessels. This will put us almost inside the planet's gravity well. From there, it's a short burn to planet Hypori. We'll prime and fire
it's exactly where I thought.
Cyclonic torpedo in orbit as we use the planet to fuel a gravitational slingshot, which will bring us back to the Lagrange point, at which point we will depart. They have no idea when we will appear, so their planetary shields should be down when we arrive, as they were for other worlds. We'll ram right through any defensive fleet, and, barring the unexpected, this should be well and done within 15 minutes. Said Persava. The captain nodded. Good. But remember, Captain, most of our targets were already struck by the other battle groups. Hypori may not know when we are coming, but they will be ready.
Wait. So their targets were already struck by the battle groups. So they're not just the... they're not the fleet that's firing the Exterminatus. These are the people going in after the Exterminatus. So they're not destroying the planet-level Exterminatus. They're, okay, the planet is utterly devastated Exterminatus, which is actually a category. You know, considering how many types of Exterminatus there are, there should be a scale of devastation but recoverable. So normal idea of apocalypse. To wait for the continents to cool. To no one is landing, followed by Demon World, run the fuck away. Which admittedly is its own Exterminatus, but usually the ones doing that actually want that outcome, so it's kind of weird.
Cautioned the large, red-armored warrior. Of course. I am sending our escorts ahead of us, along with the light cruiser, the Bearer of Hatred, at full burn as soon as we arrive.
I want Grievous to steal that ship. Just because I want him to hear the name of the ship and laugh. Because that is going to fit him so damn well. He'll probably destroy it or something else. Because I don't think he's a ship-stealing obsessed moron like the last Grievous. But it would be funny if he's the one who accidentally succeeds in what the other one tried and failed.
They should be inside the shield radius in seconds. And if the planet managed to activate them, I have every faith that the Marines on board will be able to drop and disable their generators.
Okay, Fan, now you're just waffling on this one. No, sorry, not waffling. You're just, I guess the term is speaking it up, giving more flair to the inevitable failure. It makes sense on their end because they're just talking normally, because this is not a big deal to them, but also, oh God, man.
Though it may delay us, our fleet is nimble, and we should be able to dance around the defense ships we find in
And
system
now we know
long
that they're
enough
going to lose
for
in the
them to do
orbit
their
too, because
job,
they're saying all this.
and for the operation to commence. Persava reassured. All things considered, Force Captain,
Cool
I
image,
think
though.
this is a blessing in disguise. It's not often that we have the good fortune of being able to emerge almost on top of our target. They will not stand a chance. She added, "Good."
You know, if I wasn't genre savvy, if I didn't know anything about writing, I'd be thinking right now, you know, this seems like it's kind of being talked up about how easy this fight's going to go. If it actually does, that's going to be a little disappointing. Which is exactly why I don't think fans are going to do that, because that'd be way too obvious and a horrible, horrible expectation to say, this is going to be easy, followed by being easy. If you spend any time on it, it's a terrible waste of time because you don't talk about the easy things. You talk about the interesting, hard things. Or you're in a slice of life style story where easy things are fine because you're talking about them for relaxation. This is not that kind of story, so that kind of convention doesn't work here. Also, why is... Oh, God, there's a horrible, horrible... I was going to say spoiler, but no, it's just a spoiler for my own integrity of mind. Persava. Yeah, someone made the joke. She's going to persevere. I'm with Fan on that one. Why? I'm the person who does this stupid puns here. Thank you very much. Stop stealing my shtick. Get your own channel.
I'd
Also,
like
if you do,
to
send me a link.
wipe
That sounds
this
awesome.
alien stain from the galaxy quickly, and without cost beyond our ammunition, if possible. Not one of these worlds is worth even a single life of my battle brothers. It is a shame.
I mean, to be
that
fair,
we
there's
even
only
need
a
to
single life on
bother
this one,
with them.
probably.
But there can be only one answer to heresy. The Force Captain intoned. Do not worry. We will show them the Emperor's mercy. It is more than they deserve.
They can't even do that because it looks like
Said
there's only a
Ship
single
Captain
person
Lyons.
there. And for
Captain,
Grievous, it probably would be
emerging
mercy.
from the warp in the next 30 seconds. Brace for reemergence. Sounded off one of the bridge officers. Good. Tell the fleet to prepare to engage maximum thrust. We want to be in and out before they know what hit them. Aye, aye, Captain. Said
Yeah,
the
they're just
same
going to
officer.
ram it in pretty quick.
All the while,
Get out, do the job,
Bordran looked
finish,
forward,
leave it without saying a
watching
word.
the twisting mists of white and blue speeding past his ship, before clarity and the blackness of space suddenly manifested.
Here
And
it
there,
goes.
In the center of their view was the rocky brown world they had come
Really
to
brown.
destroy. He had
Okay, this is going to be a little bit weird for me to say, but for some reason, because of all the talk about how Grievous is basically a dark reflection of what Anakin becomes, because all of the prequel villains were somewhat of a spin-off of Vader, because he was so terrifying, and they're just like that irony of this is what becomes next. I was expecting that Hypori would be a snowy ice world because of Mustafar being an inferno and volcano world, just like that reflection of it. I don't know why. That's where I was in my head, and I'm kind of disappointed I'm wrong. Matthew Daughtry, time check. I got time, and I might be able to finish the video in time. I can stretch it for like another 40 minutes, so I probably need to... Oh, so it's Rocky and Icy according to Fan? I'll take it. I'm okay with that. But yeah, I should be fine. I'm not too late. I haven't pissed off my wife yet. She would have knocked on the door and let me know by now, I hope. Yeah.
only seconds to admire it, however, before he was almost pitched from his feet.
Ooh.
Arms out and waving, he grunted
Because they came in
and
directly
stomped
into it's
down.
probably a minefield.
What is happening?
Buzz droids?
Report!
He bellowed. Not sure. Checking. Captain, we appear to be under attack.
Because they
Yelled
came
one
in
of the
right into it,
sensors
taking advantage
operators.
of
How
not
is that
needing
possible?
to so
we
far.
only just arrived.
She yelled
Grievous
back.
knew they were coming.
The ship bucked again, and from the front viewing ports, Vordran saw one of the escort's void shields flicker and die.
Oh.
The explosion
Because
it was
these are probably
absorbing
physical
overcoming its
attacks.
strength. Then another, and another.
No explosions.
It's a minefield, Captain. We
Nope, straight at
emerged
mines.
into a minefield.
So it does confirm, though, that 40K is still susceptible to Star Wars mines. Which, admittedly, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Just, Star Wars does that, but they don't really play with it nearly as much in the movies. They probably did in Star Wars Clone Wars. I just haven't got that far. I need to finish that series, damn it. I think I'm on the second season. It's getting better.
The officer called out a second later.
3 of our 4 escorts have lost all shields. Our own are taking a pounding, as are
Damn.
those of the Bearer of Hatred. Should we retreat? Warp jump away.
There is no retreat!
The Force captain roared.
Probably should be, but arrogance.
Deploy countermeasures. Begin shooting down those mines and launch whatever strike craft we can.
The mines were a
They will
distraction,
clear
though.
our way. As the Force Captain said, we are committed. All ships, maximum burn.
Captain Lyons yelled right afterwards. The Red Harbinger did as it was bade, as did the fleet around it. Anti-strike craft guns firing into the mine.
Okay, I want to say one thing. So Matthew Daughtry mentioned that mines are overpowered in real life, and they are. The thing is, in space, it's kind of weird because the explosion force itself is actually weaker than the force you would get out of tossing a tiny rock in orbit and just having it orbit the planet. The amount of force impacted by an explosion is weaker and safer to be around than how fast something that's been spinning around a planet at thousands, possibly more or close to half of that, miles per hour can do. Because when you have something that could tear through an entire ship without shields, if you get a big enough piece in orbit around it, that is a legitimate way to absolutely destroy a fleet that's jumping into it. Just having tiny particulate matter annihilate with the sheer force of momentum. Now, how that interacts with shields, I'm assuming in 40K they kind of hand wave that away because, frankly, if the solution to every problem is you just dump garbage into orbit and whatever doesn't break up destroys any exiting fleet, you've solved the problem of everyone who can't use teleportation to get out of the way. And that's usually why I don't think they touch that. But that is legitimately a thing, that mines in space aren't nearly as damaging on a real level because there's just less force than an explosion. Now, if you go into like silly effects of things that aren't actually physical and energy based, or like how their minds are different things, yeah, that's its own thing. But that's just that mix of reality versus fantasy, where we're talking about minds as if around a planet, they are the big end all be all of defense. But that's also because you can turn those off and not have them blow up on you, which is why they're probably safer. And you explained the shield thing from above? Oh, and remember these mines were stationary at the Lagrange point? Oh, so these are stationary mines at the Lagrange point, which would be outside of the orbiting path because they're at a place that's held in suspension with gravitational forces. Okay, that makes more sense then. And also, warp translation probably wants to go to Lagrange point because there's no chance of accidentally warping into the planet. Yeah, that makes sense.
Minefield around them as Thunderhawks and Fury interceptors wove about, desperate in their attempts to fend off the explosives drifting in the void. But it was working, and the battle group managed to shoot its way out as it raced with growing speed towards the brown sphere before them, and the black dots which stood between them.
Captain, Xeno's contacts detected! 12 ships are between us and the planet! All of escort size or smaller! Ram through them! Do not stop!
Ordered the captain.
Ma'am, there is a fleet behind us as well! 35 ships now making to move around the minefield!
The sensors operator relayed.
Ignore them! By the time they get around those mines, we will already be in orbit of the planet! Begin geographic scans as soon as we are in range! Begin priming the two-stager the moment we have the required parameters! Ordered Persava. Vordran could only watch as their ships continued to accelerate, unable to lend any tactical advice on a battlefield which was so different from what he was used to. He had to have...
What was he used to? I don't know nearly enough about this character to know what that would be yet. Wait, fan. Set mines are terrible. Droid brains. Really unethical. Would that make them safer or less safe? I honestly don't know because they can go off on their own by accident if it's a droid brain. Depending on which droid brain.
Faith in the captain and the ships.
Also, I love this image.
For now, they were
Spaceships,
truly committed to the fight. The escorts
Well, they're
burned
committing
ahead,
something.
led by the light cruiser, which was putting everything it had into its engine strength. Its shields flagging, but intact. It made contact with the enemy ships first, sprinting through their outbound fire and smashing into one of their larger cigar-shaped ships.
Oh, cigars.
It
Oh, yeah,
began
because
to
they have
break
those weird...
apart,
They look like
and
cigars,
then
yeah.
exploded
ships look like.
violently. What was that?
What?
The Force
Was the
captain
ship loaded with
exclaimed,
explosives?
watching the expanding fireball which consumed the bearer of hatred. The light cruiser emerged, shields utterly undone, ship bleeding scrap and fire into the
But
void
still
as it
there.
continued its full burn towards the planet. But as surprising as the disproportionate explosion had been, it was not as surprising as what happened next.
Did Grievous pack them with explosives because he had previous examples of other void battles sent to him? Dooku did say he sent information to him. Maybe he did. Fire ships? Matthew, I'm not sure what you mean by fire ships. Don't most ships fire? I mean, a spaceship in a combat situation that can't fire, it seems... Oh, do you mean they're literally decoys meant to explode? Okay, that's what he meant.
The bearer of hatred was rammed by two of the smaller capital ships of the enemy. The twin vessels veering into its path, and each detonating with disproportionate
They're literally
force.
bombs. They're bombs
ships.
in the shape of a ship.
Exclaimed Persava as the leading
That can fit a
escorts
lot of
also
non-explosive
collided with similar ships, doing as ordered and blowing apart in the resulting detonations. What? Asked the Force captain.
Well, he's going to meet the
Suicide
Force.
ships! They're probably filled to the brim with the same kind of mines we just escaped from.
Yep, but these are directed.
All vessels, veer, veer! Do not allow yourselves to be rammed by them, and do not ram them yourselves!
Wouldn't the Void Shield be able to eat
The
that?
captain said,
Different void
spouting
shield.
orders in a frenzy. The bearer of hatred exploded then, breaking apart and tumbling down towards the planet, burning.
Wait,
the
what tumbled?
indented- Spouting orders.
All vessels, veer, veer! Do not allow...
Also, I got distracted. 1, Hobbit, thank you. 2, fire ships is an old term for a ship version of a suicide bomber. Oh, so that's actually an official term, fire ship. Oh! Huh, I thought it was just like more a slang term, but apparently if that's a real one, that's actually really cool. I know almost nothing about naval tactics. For some reason, even though I find large ships fascinating, and I would love to go to an aircraft carrier if I was ever not cheap enough to, look at the cost of having to drive to the coast and stay there and do that. I would love to do that if that wasn't expensive, because I'm also cheap. But that is not something, oddly enough, I really looked into. Probably should, now that I think about it. And the void shields were weakened by the minefield? Do void shields refresh themselves, or do they have to be repaired for that to happen? I don't know any idea of how they actually work now that I think about it.
Allow yourselves to be rammed by them, and do not ram them yourselves.
Shoot.
The captain said,
Point blank is
spouting
safer.
orders in a frenzy. The bearer of hatred exploded then.
Oh,
breaking apart
yeah, it's
and
gone.
tumbling down towards the planet, burning the
this one already
entire
went through it.
way. No. Vordran muttered. The remaining ships attempted to evade, the last 2 escorts being just maneuverable enough to avoid the small targets.
Also, in the chat, Fan gave a little context. Right now, Vordran, the Space Marine, is a land commander. And he can't just stand there and do nothing, even though he's a Marine. And the idea that a Marine is supposed to be based on idea of naval warfare. It's the people who are on ships to fight hand-to-hand if you needed that for either deployment or boarding actions. So, you know, he's not even handing up to the Marine thing. He's a ground pounder who's playing as a Marine. I mean, minus the fact that Space Marines are just the general ground pounders, but we're going to ignore that part. And he's just standing there going, what? Over and over again, because he's largely unable to do anything. It's kind of cool. Fan explicitly said, yeah, no, it's exactly as bad as you think. He is out of his element, and it's his bad advice to not run away.
But the Red Harbinger, despite being extremely vast, was not nearly so able when it came to turning away.
They like to ram things.
The deck pitched as 1, and then 2, and then 3 of the enemy ships managed to strike them, firing their less effective weapons even as they plowed into the shields and hulls on the power of their sublight engines. Major damage sustained! Shields are down! I repeat, shields are down!
That's something you never want to hear.
Reported a female
If
officer
they try
from
and
within
warp
her
out now,
alcove.
that would be worse than dying.
What is the condition
Maybe?
of the priming sequence for the weapon? Captain Lyons yelled.
I'm focusing on the important parts.
Unchanged, ma'am. They are proceeding as planned, but we have major hull breaches along the port side of the Harbinger. The tech priests report that they will need 20 minutes at least to repair the damage to the shield.
Oh, they're not
array.
going to get that.
And what about the enemy fleets? Both of them.
One of
Persava
them's going to blow
demanded.
you up.
The fleet closest to us is turning to pursue. The other has just finished circumventing the minefield, but they are going around the other side of the planet. It appears
the
they
planet?
plan to intercept us on the other side.
Oh, because they're traveling
The
around to
census
this, probably.
officer reported. Then we will deal
Where's the
with
small
them
planet?
then. Keep the engines going and keep me appraised of the situation with the torpedo.
To
Ordered
quote
the
chat,
captain.
fire the Ursus claws.
Scans have
Had to be
commenced.
said.
Parameters are being verified as we speak. Said a crewman. The
gonna
last
drop?
3 ships of the battle group dropped into
No,
high
because they're still
orbit
trying to
over
destroy it from
Hypori,
orbit.
visible from the ground by the streaking fires that left their overworked engines, creating a trio of blazing tears across the sky, as though the world were being clawed by some enormous, invisible beast. Slingshot beginning, adjusting engine strength, T-minus 3 minutes before contact with the second enemy fleet, said the helmsman. Damn it, those vessels are likely fire ships as well. We cannot survive another collision with them.
Considering how accurate their predictions have been so far, I'm assuming that they're hoping the enemy thinks they're fire ships, so there's probably a few fire ships there, but those ones coming around are probably not fire ships. Just because that would be a really good way to fuck them up. Ooh, also, let's see. Wandy asked what time is it in America? It's getting pretty late here in Indonesia. For me, it's about noon. So it's probably significantly later on your time. Also, we got someone from Finland here. We got someone from Indonesia here. Damn, we're all over the entire globe at this point. Multiple hemispheres even. North and south. Noise.
What's the time left on the priming sequence? When can
Well,
we fire?
Less than 20 minutes?
Barked Persava.
Oh no, 20 minutes
Priming
to fix
is nearly
it.
complete. Firing of the 2-stage cyclonic torpedo will begin in just under 4 minutes.
How big of a torpedo?
Reported the comms officer.
A torpedo for cyclonic size
That's
could be
not good enough.
a very big range.
We have virtually no options for maneuverability in this orbit. Spat the captain. Ma'am, we will not be able to fire if we do not remain at least this close.
Why?
Another officer said. We won't be able to fire at it at all if our ship is destroyed.
She snapped back.
Why
How
can't they
much
fire it?
lower
I mean,
can
it's a
this
pretty
ship
easy
go?
target.
Asked Vordran.
Probably very sensitive
Maybe
munition.
3 or 4 kilometers down?
Any more at this speed and the atmosphere will tear us to ribbons,
Oh,
Said the helmsman.
because they don't have shields to deal with that.
That
Yeah.
isn't much, but it should be enough. Persava!
Huh. That's actually kind of funny. Just, we've seen ships falling from orbit in Star Wars videos. No, actually, third episode, Revenge of the Sith, we saw one coming down from orbit, cut in half. But it was probably falling a lot slower than this ship is going because it's coming from a full attack run. That's probably why.
Bring us close enough to the enemy ships that it seems we will collide, then bank down at the last possible moment.
The Space Marine advised.
Why do they need to get so close
It
to
is the
fire it, though?
only
To
way.
risk it not being shot?
He added.
Or precision control?
It is impossible, Force Captain.
She answered in return, a thick line
He's
of
going to
sweat
kill her, isn't
weaving
he?
down her face.
We are fast, but we cannot maneuver like that. We just don't have those kinds of thrusters.
And I don't think he's going to listen to the person
She
who's what they're
said.
talking about.
Yes, we do.
Said the Space Marine.
Just not on our engines.
What?
Tilt the Harbinger sideways and use the recoil from the ship's weapons in conjunction with our maneuvering thrusters to veer us down.
He
What?
said. She bit her lip, thinking for a moment.
No, seriously, what? I'm sorry, they're finally acknowledging recoil in space? Don't get me wrong, that's a very good point because this is how you can legitimately control that in an actual gravitic environment. Or I guess a non-gravitic environment. I don't know why I'm saying gravitic instead of gravity. I'm not, that's weird. But it's just, that's something that no one has ever acknowledged that I can imagine at any time, at any place, in any Star Wars franchise, any 40K franchise, or any time previously fan has talked in. Okay, one, I hurt my head saying talking as I've talked about space battles. But then I just remembered the space battle we've seen has been usually very one-sided, and the only time gravity was ever really used was when they literally used tractor beams to hit a bunch of ships with a fly swatter. Admittedly, they have weapons that can do that. But, I mean, it's a completely real point, and one of the ways, if you ever get stuck floating in space, is to just throw something, because the reverse momentum, even if it's not a lot, will do something, but... I don't know nearly enough about the weapon to know why they need to get this close. Is that a cyclonic torpedo thing, or is that something fans just doing to build up tension? Admittedly, if he's doing it to build up tension, it's working. It does sound good.
Before nodding.
Make it so. Order the gun crews on the right side of the ship to disengage the recoil dampening systems.
Recoil dampening?
We
Okay.
need all the shake we can get to make this work. Helmsman, stay on it.
They're going to break their own ship before he hits it. So if the ship is designed to have recoil dampeners, I mean, 40K does overbuild things, but that's, it's like taking the shock absorbers off your car. Don't.
Aye, aye, Captain.
The helmsman said, gripping his controls more
Ben
tightly.
says they're going to burn through the atmosphere.
The
I think they're going
same
to burn
orders
it.
were relayed to the escorts as well, and minutes later, they could see the Confederate ships speeding towards them, cutting
jeez.
fainter lines of fire in the atmosphere as they rushed to meet.
Steady.
Said the captain. The enemy fleet was now beginning to converge, targets clearly chosen as their globular clusters began to shift into nearly linear formations.
Steady.
She reiterated. The enemy ships began to open fire, bright green and red lines streaking past the
Damn,
imperial
Kubik.
vessels and splashing against their prows.
Now, fire.
She shrieked, and the cannons on the starboard-facing broadsides of the Red Harbinger unleashed their fury, aiming at nothing but succeeding in jerking the ship towards the planet. The escorts veering down on their own engine power alone. The Harbinger and its fellow ships were surrounded in cloaks of fire as the atmosphere began to burn around them. But the ships held strong enough, unable to remain
What are they
forever,
waiting for?
but not
Why are they
needing
waiting?
to. The daring maneuver was nearly enough to evade the enemy vessels.
Nearly?
Nearly. But as they ducked
Wait. Anyone else hear that?
to, the daring
The background
maneuver
music
was
changed.
nearly enough to evade the enemy vessels.
It went from
nearly.
instrumental to
But
techno.
as they ducked down, the Confederate ship sought to follow. One of the small vessels clipping the side of the Harbinger and tearing away a part of its hull.
Oh, damn.
The struck craft
They mean
spun
physically
up
struck?
and back
Yeah,
for a moment,
or armor
twirling in
struck.
the barrier between world and space, before exploding in a cascade of detonations. But not close enough to damage the strike cruiser.
Yet.
Yes! The captain howled, and the bridge crew
Oh,
released
Pacific Rim, that's the
beleaguered
background.
cheers, especially when the enemy ships of the Second Fleet began to collide with the pursuing First Fleet, exploding and catching other vessels in the wake of the detonations.
And he
All
amped
right,
up the volume on
countdown
that
the
too.
torpedo. She called. T-minus 40
If
seconds to
Grievous had
firing,
enough time, would he even need the planet?
said the comms officer.
It looks like he's abandoned.
Good. Return to standard orbit. Let's drop this judgment on them and get out of here before more
Why did he
show.
be that close? Probably so it's not
Persava
intercepted.
began
Yeah, that's
to
probably
say,
why.
Captain, planetary shields just went up.
Came the panicked cry
They
of
left
the
them
census
down.
operator. Vordran felt his guts drop as a flickering field of light suddenly
So they were getting so close probably to avoid shit like this happening. But they never actually checked if there was one because they didn't see one initially. Oh, and he's having the wet pants moment because he just realized how close he is to a cyclonic torpedo. Yeah, he's on the wrong side of that wall.
appeared before them, directly in the path as they made their way up. Without a word, he
Try
took
shooting
the
it?
helmet cradled under his arm and slid it on before grasping the side of the command throne with both hands.
I don't think that's going to help.
Burning throne! Brace for...
Persava began to yell before the three ships of the battle group collided head first with Hypori's particle shielding, breaking apart against the energetic skin of the
Because
world's
shields
defense,
can be physical here,
repurposed
at least
into
in
a
space
trap
sometimes.
they had all too eagerly jumped into. The two escorts were smashed.
I just realized what Fan did again. This is the second time Star Wars has managed to beat a fleet from the Imperium side by literally hitting it with a giant wall. This time it's a shield. Last time it was a bunch of actual physical spice waters. Is this going to be a thing where they don't win in combat, but they just get a big hammer to hit the thing with? This is the second time.
And the Red Harbinger was broken in half. All began to descend,
Damn.
free-falling to the waiting world below them, their wings clipped, their broken bodies falling to the earth.
Force Captain Vordran. Oh, he survived the fall. I mean, Space Marine.
Captain Vordran!
Damn, he had
Please
better
wake
days.
up, Captain Vordran! Said a distant voice. A voice Vordran could barely understand. But it simply kept calling him over and over,
Oh,
and with
a
each
Space Marine
repetition,
concussion.
it became clearer and
He
clearer.
got better.
He blinked blindness out of his eyes and saw that his helmet lenses were cracked and flickering. With a groan, he reached
How long did this come out? 2 years ago? Oh, God, almost exactly 2 years. Yeah, 2 years minus 10 days. There is no way Fan wasn't getting this exact image, what he's writing right now, and thinking of the end of Astartes, the final part of that, because what he's describing, the guy waking up through cracked and flickering lights in the broken helmet, he's definitely, it's channeling the final images of Astartes so strong right now. And admittedly, good choice. It could also be a complete coincidence, but it matches so damn well.
up, feeling that his body was broken, but not enough to stop him from moving. As he disconnected his helmet and tossed it aside, he automatically ran an internal report on his own condition. Rib plates cracked, fractured across most of his
Oh, yeah,
body.
because they have plates for ribs instead of
Mild
actual
internal
ribs.
bleeding, 3 dislodged teeth in the back right of his mouth.
Only 3?
And he'd bitten off the very tip of his tongue.
Ooh.
All in all, he was surprised
Marine
that
blood
it was not
coagulates
worse,
sooner.
and with the help of the Marine who
He's
was
literally
standing
walking
over
it
him,
off.
he rose, armor screeching in protest. Report. He managed to grunt as he began to look around. He was still on the bridge, though he was now on the roof. All around him were the gore-laden smears which once composed the bridge crew.
Yeah, I don't think they worked out
He
too well.
winced as he spotted the bruised,
Because he can take
ruined
more
remains of Captain Persava's severed head, which
Eh.
had somehow come free of her body in the crash.
Yeah.
Sergeant Kandrin reporting in.
Admittedly, he came through pretty well. The irony being, these kind of forces, the fact that the head remained is a little surprising in its own right. There are unfortunate documentaries of similar amounts of force in plane crashes, even if the plane itself doesn't, I think the term is ossify. No, that's going bone. Disintegrate. Internally, anything squishy is more or less soup. Having a head surviving is more than most people usually find in these situations. I only know this because my brother is a medic and he has talked about these exact conditions at the dinner table when we were eating, and I cannot get it out of my head. It was nauseating, and he had pictures. Why did he have pictures? 1 second, I just need to repress this. Yeah, I need to stop talking about this story. It just keeps getting refreshed in my memory, and I don't want that. I don't want to remember this.
The man said obediently, "We are on the planet, on Hypori.
I'm sure this is fine.
My squad is half gone. 2 are dead, 3 are in trance or too heavily wounded to be moved
Trance?
easily.
Oh, because they can enter a sleep
My
state.
4 remaining Marines are
recover
up
if
and
they're not dead and
mobile,
save themselves.
but no one man got through this crash unscathed.
I mean, this guy lost
conditions of
teeth.
the other 2 squads are unknown, but I would not count on ever hearing from them again, sir." The sergeant reported. "What about the mortal crew?"
I think you
Vordran asked.
know. What?
Well, maybe a few survived somehow, but what you are seeing around you is all I found so far.
Yeah.
And Brother Librarian Dendran?
Oh, they had a
What of
librarian with
him?
them.
The force commander asked. The sergeant could only shrug. "I haven't seen him yet. He is likely dead or unconscious, given
Normally, this is where I would say, okay, he's probably alive. We're going to get a cool scene. But considering that this entire event was prefaced by fans saying this is where they were humbled, he was like the Razor's Bane or something, because I can't remember exact words, he might have just been killed off screen, because then they have no way to escape, because all of the astropaths, mortal, are probably dead. And the Psyker are the only one who can make contact, unless they start using the technology over here. And I don't think any of them are tech marines. They might have one with them, but I thought he was in a different location.
that he has not reached out to any of us thus far.
Yeah.
Either way, we have more pressing issues than locating our would-be navigator," said
So
Sergeant
they were
Kandrin.
would-be navigator, the librarian, yeah.
"And why is that?" asked Vordran. "It's best if you come see. Can you move?"
Are they surrounded?
asked the Marine. Vordran nodded. "Well, enough.
Bane of Razor's
Lead the
Magic.
way," he said. Kandrin led Vordran out of the bridge and to a nearby airlock hatch. The space was
Could use some
not
blood on this one,
only
Kubik.
upside down, but it was also tilted at a sharp angle, and climbing up through it was agony. That agony only increased once they exited, the cold wind of the mostly barren world whipping at their faces.
It's not just they're surrounded by
we must
droids.
climb,
It's literally
said
a robot
Kandrin,
army.
and Vordran followed without complaint, though he also considered that
Wonder if
what
we'll
he
have
was being
remembered horror.
shown would need to be damned important to go through all of this. And it was.
Gonna take a while, guess.
For soon, the Force Commander understood why he had been brought outside and to the
Time is
top
short,
of
but
their
I'm fine.
crushed ship, buried head first in the stone of the planet.
Oh, dude.
Keeping watch.
To give an idea of the forces involved here, what fans describing is actually a really good example of overpowered Imperial ships, because if a plane, for example, did this, they disintegrate. And I don't mean that as a metaphor. I mean that as in you find shrapnel, tiny little bits floating in water hundreds of miles away because it was blown away by its own exhaust from the wind tearing it off. You don't find pieces. You find dust, essentially, when these kind of forces hit. So Imperial ships are really damn strong to resist that. And that's if you hit dirt. When you hit rock and stone, that is even more so. Just smashed to hell. Because it doesn't sound like they did a scraping landing. They crashed into it. In general forces, the more aggressive the angle, the closer to what perpendicular it gets, the more destroyed it gets. But when you get a little more like this, it might skim across and there might be bits and pieces surviving, or you get more and more left. So in terms of showing how strong all these plates are, this is a really good example. It's a weird way to do it, and I don't think Fan did it intentionally, but because he specifically said camera is offline, god damn it. I've had issues with this camera. I know why. It's a heat issue. It's because I can't open my door to cool off my room, so right now I'm in a sauna. I don't know why I'm wearing this right now. It was cool when I walked in here, and now I'm burning up. Basically, though, where I was at is, when he says the nose is buried in, that means they came in at an aggressive angle, so that's a lot more force, basically what I'm saying. My camera's overheating again. Yeah, I'm aware of it.
Watch there.
It does this a lot in
Vordran
streams.
found the other 4 able-bodied Marines of Kandran's squad.
Yeah, about an hour in, it
Each
starts
obviously
burning up.
injured, their power armors lined with cracks and dried blood. But what was most of note was what they were watching.
What?
Vordran stood up as
I'm
tall as
assuming
he
it's
could
droids.
and surveyed the area around them. The craggy planet stretched out before the Marine, mountains spiking against the distant pale blue horizon, and the smoldering, burning wrecks of his battle group laying in pieces all around them, scattered
wrecks?
out for a couple of miles in every direction. And beyond them was a gleaming ocean. No,
Ocean?
not an ocean. An army. A vast machine army. Composed not of the spindly, nearly worthless units that Vordran and the others had
Super battle
encountered
droids,
in
right?
mass before, but of the larger, more tactically sound blue variants that had
Blue?
acted as support and shock forces.
Are they blue?
Among them,
1 second. This is actually something I want to double check quickly. I can't spell to save my life, but I guess it's like a metallic blue. There's silver? Oh. Okay. Maybe it's a color thing then.
were tanks of various
Oh,
kinds.
Grievous has
from
them
the
specifically
one-legged,
painted bluish.
spider-like
Got it.
units which carefully picked
I
their
thought I was
way
just going
through the
crazy for a
army,
sec. I was like, am I
to the
colorblind?
longer,
Is it me?
ovoid vehicles which ground across the terrain on encompassing tank treads. And they seem to be
Dude.
closing in from every direction. Filth and blood.
I don't think you have enough ammo.
The Force Captain cursed. Indeed. What's the plan, Captain?
Die.
Asked the sergeant. Vordran paused for a long few seconds, eyeing the approaching forces and the wreckage which surrounded them.
Detonate the ship.
We've no choice but to start searching, he said
Searching?
through bloody lips. Searching for what, brother Captain?
Probably a way to blow the ship
Asked Kandran.
and take out as many as you can.
An astropath.
Oh.
Or any other kind of psyker who can send a message.
I don't think you got any
We
of those.
were entirely undone here, Sergeant. This enemy, whatever it is, predicted our every move from start to finish. We must
Yep,
warn the
an
chapter.
actual good general.
We must warn Davik Thune. If we cannot, we will have no chance of rescue, and our failure will be utter and complete.
And probably
The
replicated.
words were like knives to the other Marines, just as they were
Mr.
for
Can't Run
Vordran,
Away.
who spoke
I think
them.
you should run away.
We must not fail.
Oh, you
Can
already
we
did.
still detonate the torpedo? Can we at least complete the mission? Asked the sergeant, voice all
Is the torpedo delicate enough that it wouldn't survive, or is it strong enough that it would? I actually don't know.
almost frantic. Perhaps. Perhaps not.
I mean, if it's on the right part of the ship,
We
too.
will search for that as well. One of your men will remain here to provide intel on the approaching enemy. The rest shall split into 2 squads. I
If
will
they all
lead
don't
the
start
search
firing
for
with
a
overwhelming
psyker.
power, I'll be surprised.
You will lead the search for the cyclonic torpedo. Keep radio silence unless absolutely
Because the
necessary.
droids can definitely intercept that.
They may not
Maybe?
know that we yet
Maybe
live,
with Grievous doing
and
it.
we will need every single advantage available to us if we plan to continue living. Understood,
Eh.
Sergeant?
Living is going to be a hard
The
stretch.
Marine snapped a salute. Yes, brother Captain, let us begin, he said. But Vordran was not looking at him, and paused, suddenly seeming distracted as he stared
Grievous
into
coming
the
in
distant
person?
but encroaching ocean of abominations.
Dude.
For a brief moment, he felt that he had seen something. A pale, white figure, like
Yep.
a towering
That
wraith
would be
amid
Grievous.
the metal men. Its form flickering and waving in the wind. He had seen it, and he was sure, for some reason, that it had seen him.
Oh, yeah.
Force Captain?
Love the music
Asked
change.
Kandrin. Yes, let us begin as soon as we can. Meet back here at 1 interval, or once we have found
I
what
don't
we
think
are
they're going to
looking
live
for.
that long.
Move out, Marines.
This is his funeral, all right. New objective, survive. Oh, you're cutting it there! Wow, there's a lot of credits. I won't do it just because I actually am running short on time. I have literally 4 minutes. So we managed to keep this at the I'm not going to be in trouble stage, which, admittedly, I was not entirely sure we would achieve because me and time do not usually go well. God damn, that was intense. I had goosebumps at multiple points. I'm just sitting here going, okay, admittedly I'm screaming, God damn you, fan, could you have shown what happened? We know what's going to happen. We know they're going to die. Because if they got the torpedo off when Grievous was within eye shot, he would have died. And since fans building it up, that's not going to happen. But I want more. Unfortunately, I also do need to adult, and by adulting I mean going to families, so I need to definitely do that. And since I haven't been late, I'm now down to 3 minutes, so I can still talk a bit. But this is good. I love seeing the fight. I love seeing fan showing that the most effective way to deal with people in Star Wars, or from Star Wars 240K, is to put a wall in front of them and hit them with it. Admittedly, with some of the shielding technology, considering they have canonical super ships that have giant tractor beams, would they be able to do like a super wedge-shaped shield that's just overpowered and then literally go sword and shield to drag the ship in and then stab it with the shield? Literally make a giant sword in space? That's stupid. It's so stupid, I kind of want to see the absolute absurdity of it because hitting things so far is the blunt force damage way to destroy everything inside of it. Sure, the ship might survive, but the squishy mortals on the inside will be pulped by all of the not alive juice. And by that I mean inertia suddenly going the wrong direction. Oh god, that was awesome. Basically, you guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. I gave you the link. Actually, I didn't give you the link. But go to the original video, which is linked below. Hit up fans' Patreon. Support this man already. If you haven't, do that. If you have, thanks. That's awesome. I need to get going, though, because I'm not late. I don't want to destroy that by waffling on because I'm having a geek out moment right now, which I easily could and have done multiple times, including when I shouldn't have. That's on me. Yeah. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Fan, thank you for making this. Kubik, if you're here, you did an awesome job on some of the art. And I can definitely tell your style is getting better. I just... God, I want more, damn it. You have no idea how hard it is not to just watch the next one right away. But I can't because literally having to not be here in the next... Okay, I'm down to 1 minute. I need to shut up now. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.